What's up everyone, this is Ignatius. This is a build guide update for my Amazon Shatter bow build. I wasn't planning on doing this update until I had everything refined post-patch with new changes. However, a lot of people are asking for sort of an interim update, and that's what this is. I do think I'm like, 8/10 of the way there with a few things left to solve, and I will call those out and mention them. But yeah, I want to give this interim update for everybody who's following this build, and I'm going to go through it as quickly and as usefully as possible. So this will be a very cut and dry, just listen and learn type of guide. So major build changes. Here's the things that changed that had nothing to do with the patch. And these were plans that I sort of had in mind when I created the archetype to get to, but these are very expensive changes. And they make the build a little bit glacier, so you're more likely to die with these changes. So, overall, you don't need to make these changes, but if you do, you will be faster. And that's sort of, the last bit of difference that you look for in improving a build at the very late end game like this. So, the biggest change has to do with movement speed and general clear speed, even attack speed. Now that mana is not an issue. There's not a easy way to summarize all the different speed changes, but here's kind of the biggest ones. Number one, went for some Giga Boots. Now these are 5% off from being perfect. These are a 30% move roll rather than a 35, but they are a 100% increase effect of sockets, and we have 3 Feral Rune of the Chase. So these are 60% move speed boots with the deflection, with the rarity, and a 700 evasion. Notice they aren't qualityed. I didn't craft these, but somebody goofed there. These are expensive. I think this pair was like 80, 100 divs, and that was me monitoring a search for a while. So yeah, go out and fetch a pair of these if you're going to swap over to the movement speed based part of the build. If you can't get a pair of these, don't swap, because this is the most significant movement speed increase that's a part of this switch. Part 2 of the switch is the surrounded tag. So most people are familiar with this, but Constricting command has this tag, requires fewer enemies to be surrounded. If that number is 5 or 6, then you are permanently surrounded. And when you're permanently surrounded, you have all these surrounded nodes that come into play. This is the big one here, 10% movement speed while surrounded. Excellent stuff. There's even some attack speed and some other stuff in there, but I'll go over that when I get to the skill tree. Now, there's 2 things I'm not opting for, which often are a part of this thing. So one is the spirit charms. There's 3 aspects where when they activate on the unique rarity charm, you get movement speed. I'm not going to include these in the guide. I probably am going to buy those. I'm sitting on 253 div. I may try out a few more things as a part of the cooking for this build. And I may invest in those explorations, but eventually I'm going to get one of those charms, but I'm going to leave it off the guide because I hate when that feels like a requirement and it could be like a 200 div charm. The other is Onslaught on bow. So you can swap into here, chance to gain Onslaught on kill. Onslaught gives you more movement speed, is very powerful. I just really like my bow. I like the damage breakpoint I'm at. I like having the additional arrows, so my bow, I feel, is like exactly what I want for this build and the content that I'm doing. So I'm going to leave the Onslaught off there, but I just want to mention that that's there. Okay, surrounded tack. So this is really required for the switch for 2 reasons. One, you're switching for speed. Part of that is movement speed, but another part is attack speed. So you'll notice in the new gems that rapid attack shows up everywhere. We're going for Ricochet 2 here. And then you'll notice as well that there's no more mana leech on the build. So we can just fire away and we don't run out of mana. You hopefully have seen this already this season, but if for some reason you haven't, this is made possible by Defy 2. This gem is incredibly powerful. It makes all our damage with hits lucky. That means they roll twice and it takes the higher roll. It's sort of like an unknown mysterious DPS multiplier. It doesn't show up here, but it's massive. And then insufficient mana doesn't prevent the use of skills. So basically we're slotting one of these into all of our skills that cost mana, and we don't have to worry about mana anymore. It's pretty amazing. So that's kind of the gist of the surrounded attack. The other piece of it is like all these surrounded nodes on the tree that are really powerful, and just check those out in the new skill tree. Okay, third biggest thing is rarity. Hitting 100 to 150% rarity is huge for drops. If you've been watching my recent streams, My maps are so juicy, and this is a huge part. I had a map where I dropped 7 divs in the map. It was ridiculous. And then, of course, tons of other good omens and you know, perfect exalts and stuff dropping. So just massive value from maps with rarity. It's almost a requirement for an endgame build. Now, here's the biggest kicker. Moria Invictus, the armor, it was broken. The rarity wasn't applying, but they fixed it in the most recent patch. Thank you, GGG. So we are now wearing the unique Moria with 5 sockets and 40% rarity with the Rabbit Talismans. Right now I'm using the Chaos Res, Max Life, All Res version of this Moria. There is another version which may be worth trying, and I'm going to explore it, which includes global defenses instead of Chaos Res. They are super expensive, so I'm monitoring this trade, trying to get an idea of what the real fair market value is for that, and I might try that one out as well. Now that we wear Moria, we no longer have an ES stacking chest, and in general, we just no longer really care about ES because the chest is the only way we're going to stack that unless we want to switch to like hybrid here, and then our evasion is going to go way down and it's just not worth it. So we are officially life stacking, and we have life nodes on Moria, and on the tree we have a couple of life-based things, and any additional attributes we have, we are slotting into life. And since we have Defy and we don't need mana, we're now running Life Leech on the gloves. You could also throw it on the rings. And with a life pool of about 2k and with Life Leech, you'll notice that you're hardly ever going to die except for the occasional one-shot. We're also running an Olroth's Resolve, which helps with those moments of like damage over time stuff that can lead to deaths. It also gives you guard, so really, really powerful. All right, on that same topic of life, evasion, and Flasks, another thing that happened around the same time that I was swapping to this build was they nerfed evasion in general. They changed the evasion formula, which was really interesting. I used to sit at around 78 to 80% evade, and there was really no chance of death if I played well. Now we're at about 50% evade in combination of the patch changes and the Moria. Now this could go up with more global defenses and a swap in the amulet, which I am going to explore both of those things, but I think it would only go up to about 60 to 65%. So with the 2.1k life and the life leech, deaths are going to be very rare, but I would say a one-shot is like now much more likely because of the evade chance and the reduced health pool. I talked about these solutions I will be exploring. Ultimately, we're trying to hit this mysterious threshold where we don't die to random one-shots. And I'm going to find that threshold because I plan to go to level 100. I'm at 98 right now, and I can't be dying in 98 and 99 if I want to get to 100. Okay, another huge patch change, bosses. I actually don't know exactly what they did. You know, bosses are generally a little beefier, it seems like, but they seem to have changed ailment threshold on bosses, and it is like ridiculous. They are ridiculously hard to freeze. What we used to do was freeze the minion, hop off the Roa, cast barrage, and shoot a snipe at point blank, and it dealt like 50 million damage, consuming to freeze. It was really fun, really powerful, really great mechanic. It just doesn't work anymore. I tried overwhelming presence and other ways to reduce monster ailment threshold, and it's just not worth it. I'm still exploring some other things with weapon swap and non-bow skills, and potentially even stacking charges for a non-freeze consuming snipe. I do think these will be viable, but in the meantime, here's all you need to do. Slap on a lightning rod, put it in set 2, slap on a lightning arrow, put it in set 2, follow my weapon swap points for massive damage on bosses, and basically when you get to a boss, you go boom, 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 and you go boom, 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 boom. You can put a tornado shot in there, and it does, I think, around 10 million, 7 to 10 million DPS. It's really, really fast. Okay, the last two categories to talk about are skill gems and skill tree. I'm not going to go in depth on this. You can follow the changes I have in the written guide. But I will just say a few things. You know, the gems on all of the main skills have changed, and I am testing Ricochet versus Rapid Attacks 2 on Ice Shot. The other 4, I think, are like, you know, very set in stone. Obviously, the Lightning Arrow and Lightning Rod and Herald and Thunder are slotted in now as well. The Barrage is only here. This is actually worth mentioning. The Barrage is here to make the Int support gem count higher than the others, in order to make crystallized immunities still make us immune to chill. So just a little note there. And I think that's about it on support gems. You know, you're still rotating between the two main clear skills. So Ice Shot is your general clear, and you can shoot it all the time. But Similarly, if you want to get the Ice Bite and Innervate buffs, which are really powerful, you can shoot basic attacks. The other thing that's going on here is that the Lightning Arrow does not have the Nova Proj. So if you're walking down like an alleyway or something, you can just Lightning Arrow it. Since everything costs no mana, you can just kind of spam all of these skills. That's about it on gems. For tree, I did make a major change around a weapon swap for bosses. So when you swap to Rod for bosses in swap 2, and you can set up a swap 2 without having a second set of weapons with this little lock button here. When you swap to Rod, you'll notice the DPS of these goes up immensely. Watch the lightning arrow when we swap just by clicking the Rod, 373 to 432, and then obviously that is, that's in hideout, so when you actually get down there and get in combat, it's going to be insane. And then the other thing I'll mention is that I got all my gems up to level 21 base from corruption, and this is a really good and cheap way to get more damage out of all of your skills, and I just made a recent crafting guide on how to do that for pretty cheap, so check that out as well. Other things in the skill tree, we've got some life stacking going on, so we're using Gem Enthusiast, lots of strength nodes, tons of movement speed. I'm still doing this kind of Walker of the Wilds against the darkness thing, and again, I'm pushing this video out earlier than the build being totally settled. I do think this is going to be something that needs a big revision over here, with better priority points allocated elsewhere. And then lastly, I'm trying to figure out how to get away from energy shield nodes over here while still maintaining the movement speed components that I wanted. So we'll see there. Those two are sort of up for grabs. That's about it for skill tree and gems. Outside of that, I think, you've got more jewel slots. So you'll want to find some more basic emeralds. I went for movement speed, crit, and bonuses from Quiver generally. You can also find damage with bows, LE damage, accuracy, evasion. All of those are going to be really good. And then everything else is still pretty much standard. I'm still going to post like a major final form build when I get everything settled, but at this phase and where we're at here, we're at about 100% movement speed in hideout. We get up to about 130 in combat, and then we hop on Roa, we're at 114 in hideout, and then our rarity count at the moment is 134. I'm going to get some in a revise of the crafted amulet to get up to 150. So those are kind of the biggest bonuses of this new build, and it is still a monster at clearing. I'll close this video out with kind of just some gameplay of mapping and a deletion of Xesht with the lightning rod, lightning arrow setup, and then please post any questions in the Discord or in the chat, and I'll get to everything as quick as I can. Thanks, everyone.